Once again, Christian greetings to all our valued listeners and viewers throughout the whole world. Even more particularly to all Shepherd's Rod believers, and most especially to our beloved brothers and sisters in the United States of America. Special greetings to our brethren in Colorado, in Kansas, in Georgia, in Missouri, in Texas, Chicago, Illinois, in Arkansas, in California, in New York, in Pennsylvania, in Canada, in Fiji Island, and Mexico, Spain, Africa, Kenya, Pakistan, Zambia, to the United Kingdom, to our brethren in Australia and Malaysia, Indonesia, and also in Papua New Guinea, and to the rest of the 144,000 living saints scattered abroad. Greetings. May the good Lord bless you, my dear brothers and sisters. This is our special episode number 52. Just an hour exposition of the prophecy as the last final warning message just prior to the close of fruition. And still we focus our attention to the subject, the 11th hour. And we connect such subject on the subject, the harvest. For accordingly, the 11th hour is the end of the world. 3 Symbolic Code 5 and 6, page 12. And the end of the world is the harvest. Answerer number 2, page 37. And to repeat again, harvest is a period of time having a beginning and ending. Answerer number 2, page 36. And accordingly, in track number 5, Three Symbolic Code 5 and 6, page 12, the 11th hour is to be the end of the world. And according to track number 5, page 74, the 144,000, the first fruits, they are sealed at the beginning of the harvest. We already studied yesterday, that in order for us to establish the beginning of the parabolic harvest period, we must ascertain the date Jesus Christ was baptized. Track number 3 on page 56. As his ministry, his sowing of the good seed, which is the truth, began right after his baptism. Matthew 4:17. Therefore, to establish the beginning of the parabolic harvest period, we must ascertain the date he was baptized. And on page 57, the shepherd's rod plainly told us that his baptism took place on the 16th day of the 7th month. It says, we find that his baptism took place on the 16th day of the 7th month. And on the great controversy, it is on the year 27 AD. So let's read the statement. It says, uh, 326, the great controversy. At that time, this prophecy was fulfilled. The word Messiah signifies the anointed one. In the autumn of AD 27, Christ was baptized by John and received the anointing of the Spirit. Why is it that it is very important to establish the date Jesus Christ was baptized? In order for us to establish the beginning of the parabolic harvest period, it's so because in track number 3, the shepherd's rod plainly told us. On track number 3, page 58. The 3.5 years from the beginning of Christ's ministry to his crucifixion being the sowing time. So, in that reading, there is a precious truth that had been hidden beneath the surface. Because the beginning of Christ's ministry began after the 40 days wilderness temptation. So let us read again the statement in Answerer number 3, page 13. It says, corresponding to his preaching the gospel after the wilderness temptation. And also the statement in track number 3, the quotation is Matthew 4:17. So let us read again track number 3, page 56. As his ministry, his sowing of the good seed, which is the truth, began right after his baptism. Matthew 4:17. So when does the sowing of the good seed commence? Began right after his baptism, but in more specific term, that is after the 40 days wilderness temptation. And that is the time when Jesus Christ entered into the synagogue of Nazareth. So, the particular object in view in this subject is the fulfillment of the prophecy on Isaiah 61. Because that is the gospel that Jesus Christ read when he entered into the synagogue of Nazareth. It says here, the first verse and part of the second apply to Christ himself at the beginning of his ministry. The Spirit prophecy says it will repeat itself with the people of God. This would find its fulfillment in the time of harvest with the 144,000. So the statement is very plain. The perfect fulfillment of the prophecy recorded on Isaiah 61 verse 1 and 2 is in the time of harvest with the 144,000. Therefore, it must be in the time of the beginning of the parabolic harvest period. The period of time by which the 144,000 are sealed. And we know that Isaiah 61 verses 1 and 2, the focal point is the acceptable year of the Lord, and also the day of vengeance. In Desire of Ages, let us read again the statement. The voice of inspiration plainly told us that when Jesus entered into the synagogue in Nazareth, the very message that he preached is Isaiah 61 verse 1 and 2. But accordingly, he omitted the day of vengeance. The praise, the day of vengeance. So, let's read Desire of Ages 240. When Jesus in the synagogue read from the prophecy, he stopped short of the final specification concerning the Messiah's work. Having read the words to proclaim the acceptable year of the Lord, he omitted the praise and the day of vengeance of our God. Why is it Jesus Christ omitted the praise the day of vengeance of our God? Simply because being the author of truth, God knoweth that during the period, during the 5 figurative months, God has deferred His vengeance to grace. I would like to read tract number 5, page 75. These several linked facts present as solid chain of evidence that in the Christian era, during the 5 figurative months, God has deferred His vengeance to grace. Now, the shepherd's rod is plainly telling us that during the 5 figurative months, God has deferred His vengeance to grace. So, in order for us to comprehend completely the subject the harvest, we need to connect the subject, the 5 figurative months. So, let us familiarize the 5 figurative months. Now, let's read tract number 5, page 74. It says, tract number 5 on page 74. To the parable of the harvest, then we must go for the full explanation of the 5 months period. Tract number 5, page 74. It says here, to the parable of the harvest, then we must go for the full explanation of the 5 months period. So it needs full explanation. There is no possibility that we could be able to comprehend the parable of the harvest unless we obtain the full explanation of the 5 months period. Then it says, in track number 3, track number 5, page 74, it says, in track number 3, the harvest, the time from the baptism of Christ to the close of provision, is shown to be illustrated by 12 figurative months, 6 from Christ's baptism to his crucifixion, 5 from the crucifixion to the ingathering of the first fruits, the 144,000, Revelation 14 verse 4. Leaving 1 month for the ingathering of the second fruits, the great multitude, Revelation 7 verse 9. Remember, brethren, according to track number 3, page 65, it says, do not regard lightly the wisdom of God. His illustrations are perfect. So that is God being infallible. It says in 1 SR 232, as God is infallible, His works spell perfection, even to 1 jot or 1 tittle. And since God's illustrations are perfect, then it's easy to understand. 6 is bigger than 5, and 5 is lesser than 6. There is similarity between the first period, the sowing time, and the first 6 figurative months. That is, it says here in track number 3, page 58, the 3.5 years from the beginning of Christ's ministry to his crucifixion being the sowing time. Although, as we already proven with absolute fact that Christ's ministry, the sowing of the good seed, occurred after the wilderness temptation, according to Answerer number 3, page 13. But here, on track number 5, page 74, it is even more specific. That the first 6 figurative months, it says, from Christ's baptism to his crucifixion. Track number 5, page 74. So, the the divine clue that had been given on the subject, the 12 figurative months, is the first 6 figurative months. For there is exact period of time from Christ's baptism to his crucifixion. And that is the reason why the shepherd's rod plainly told us that in order for us to establish the beginning of the parabolic harvest period, we must ascertain the date he was baptized. Track number 3, page 56. Since we already established completely the date Jesus Christ was baptized, and it was on October 16, 27 AD. Remember, that is Bible calendar, not Julian calendar. And accordingly, on track number 5 on page 74, it says that to the parable of the harvest, we need to obtain the full explanation of the 5 months period. So the particular object in view is the 5 months period. But the given clue is the first 6 figurative months. The first 6 figurative months consist 1,260 days. That was from Christ's baptism to his crucifixion. So through that given clue, we can easily discern by the help of the Spirit of Christ, by dividing 1,260 days. It must be divided by 6 for 1,260 days is the entire period of the first 6 figurative months. So let us divide 1,260 divided by 6 must be 210. Therefore, each figurative month consists of 210 days. So there must be 210 days each figurative month. Then to find out the exact period of time of the 5 months period, we need to multiply 210 times 5. So 210 times 5 equals 1,050 days. And maybe diagram 268 slide 2 can help. So let's begin on 268 slide 1. So that is the first one. Why is it divided by 7? Number 268 slide 1. What happened with that? 1,260 divided by 6. Well, it becomes 7. You can see that 1,260 divided by 6 equals 210. So this subject is very important, and it is a quiet, deep subject. So to repeat again, in that illustration, because God's illustration is perfect. All His work is spell perfection, even to one jot or one tittle. And since the shepherd's rod plainly told us that from Christ's baptism to His crucifixion, That is the first 6 figurative months, which consists of 1,260 days. Then we need to divide 1,260 divided by 6. Why we divide by 6? Because that is 6 figurative months. The answer is 210. Therefore, each figurative month consists of 210 days, which is exactly 7 months. Because 210 divided by 30, that is 7. The Bible calendar consists only 30 days every month. So, the second clue, let us go to slide number 2. So, this is our second clue. And of course, 6 is bigger than 5. And 5 is lesser than 6. So in the perfect fulfillment of the prophecy, it must be that the 5 months period must be exactly 1,050 days. It must be exactly 1,050 days. Because if if you will begin the 5 figurative months on 31 AD, it's already more than 1,000 years. Therefore, the illustrations are not perfect. That number 6 is lesser than 5. And it seems that God did not know numbers, but that is not the case. God's work always spells perfection. His illustrations are perfect. Let us first establish the divine principle. Concerning the subject, the trumpets. It says, page 35. Track number 5, page 35. The seal comes first because they reveal in the judgment the several periods of the sealing of the saints, which necessarily precede the matching several trumpet periods of destruction of those who did not receive the seal. Naturally then, the first seal must precede the first trumpet, the second seal, the second trumpet, and so on, like the needle and the shuttle. So that is the divine principle. Each seal must precede its corresponding matching trumpet. Therefore, the fifth seal must precede the fifth trumpet. But the application made by B.T. Hotep is opposite. The fifth trumpet began on the first advent of Jesus Christ, 4 BC. But the fifth seal commenced in 1500 AD. It says here, on page 79, track number 5, Christ's first advent and subsequent events, fifth trumpet. So the fifth trumpet is pointing to the first advent of Jesus Christ. But the fifth seal commenced on let's read 2SR 221. The fifth from 1500 AD to 1755. 2SR page 221. So it is contradictory to the proper application of the prophecy. It so happened that the fifth trumpet precedes the fifth seal. That is not the divine principle. The divine principle is that the fifth seal must precede the fifth trumpet. So, that application is not the particular object in view. That is only the groundwork. So I would like to read track number 5, page 34. Fulfilled prophecies are seen, therefore, to be employed by the scriptures only as groundwork for that part of prophecy which is yet to be fulfilled. So that is only the groundwork, not the particular object in view. In the particular object in view, it must be that the fifth seal must precede the fifth trumpet. If we fully believe that the trumpet study is a symbolical prophecy, it says here in track number 5, page 26, symbolical or literal, which only when this question is rightly answered will we have the correct interpretation to unlock this great symbolical treasure house of truth. And in page 41 it says, for if every term is not symbolical, how shall we differentiate those which are from those which are not? And how shall we know by which to define the truth? So that statement positively declared the subject, the seven trumpets, every term must be symbolical. Now, if you will read the Bible, on Revelation 8, on verse 13, it says, Revelation 8, verse 13, and I beheld and heard an angel flying through the midst of heaven, saying with a loud voice, Woo, 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 to the inhabitants of the earth, by reason of the other voices of the trumpet of the three angels which are yet to sound. So, the particular object in view in this verse is the inhabitants of the earth. And since we already established the absolute fact that the trumpet study, every term must be symbolical. Therefore, the earth mentioned there cannot be the literal earth. It must be the symbolical earth. The same with Revelation 7, verse 3 and 4. Hurt not the earth and the sea. The earth and the sea are symbolical. But Revelation 8 verse 13, it is directly addressed to the symbolical earth. And we already proven with absolute fact that this prophecy in its perfect fulfillment was still unfulfilled, because the symbolical earth on the first advent of Jesus Christ, there is no inhabitants as yet. But the Bible is very clear. Woo, 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 to the inhabitants of the earth. And according to the great controversy, I would like to read the great controversy 444. I think 440. It says here, but the beast with lamb-like horns was seen coming up out of the earth. Instead of overthrowing other powers to establish itself, the nation thus represented must arise in territory previously unoccupied and grow up gradually and peacefully. It could not then arise among the crowded and struggling nationalities of the old world, that turbulent sea of peoples and multitudes and nations and tongues. It must be sought in the western continent. What nation of the New World was in 1798 rising into power, giving promise of strength and greatness, and attracting the attention of the world? The application of the symbols admits of no question. One nation, and only one, meets the specifications of this prophecy. It points unmistakably to the United States of America. So, the only nation by which represented by the symbolical earth, it is the United States of America, according to the voice of inspiration. And since the trumpet study is a symbolical prophecy, every term must be symbolical. Revelation 8 verse 13 must be symbolical. The earth mentioned there must be symbolical earth. And it cannot be applied in the first advent of Jesus Christ, because at that time the symbolical earth is still unoccupied. So we need now to make a list to prove that the application made by B.T. Hopper is only the groundwork, which is in absolute importance to comprehend the particular object in view. So I would like to read track number 5 on page 32. The statements which must shortly come to pass. Revelation 1 verse 1. And I will show thee things which must be hereafter. Revelation 4 verse 1. Go to say that the revelation is given with the one particular object in view, of showing the things lying not behind but ahead of John's time, with reference being made only incidentally to the past, in order to lay the necessary foundation upon which to build the future. So the statement is very plain. The particular object in view cannot be lying behind from the time John the Revelator saw the vision. It must be from 100 AD onwards, not backwards. So the application of the 5 figurative months in its perfect fulfillment cannot be in 4 BC, because that is backward from the time when John saw the vision. And the jumper's rod plainly told us here in 2SR, page 100, 2SR page 191, it says, therefore, the word hereafter Therefore, the word hereafter in Revelation 4 verse 1 means from the time of the vision pointing forward to 1844. So, the particular object in view in the vision of John must be from 1844 onwards, which is called the time of the end. As stated by the sharper sword, even the book of Daniel. In 3 Symbolic Code 8 to 10, page 8, it says, this time must have begun when the book began to be opened. But if we must declare the beginning of that time in more specific terms, it, in a spatial sense, began in the year 1844. So the proper application of the subject, the seven seals and the seven trumpets, in its perfect fulfillment must be from 1844 onwards. So the application from 1844 backwards, that was only the groundwork. More particularly on the fifth trumpet, because the fifth trumpet on its groundwork applied to 4 BC, the first advent of Jesus Christ. But the shepherd's rod made it so plain that the particular object in view must be lying not behind but ahead of John's time. So it must be 100 AD onwards. And that is why the shepherd's rod admonishes us that the 3 periods of time must be perfectly calculated, because numbers will always speak the truth. Numbers do not lie. So I would like to read again, track number 3, page 54. The seed sower, the seed, the field, the season of cultivation and growing, and the season of harvest must together be perfectly calculated to illustrate the spiritual kingdom. Otherwise, the representation can only lead into error instead of into truth. So the period of sowing, the period of growing, and the period of harvest, these 3 periods must be perfectly calculated. Otherwise, the representation can only lead into error instead of into truth. Of course, the term perfectly calculated, such calculation must be perfect. So, and perfect calculation cometh only from God. So, at the time when such perfect calculation come, indicates that God Himself is at work. In order for us to prepare the coming events, God bestowed unto us the gift of understanding concerning such perfect calculation. And the next reason why it cannot be applied on the first advent of Jesus Christ, because if we will say that the entire period during the 5 figurative months, there was no day of vengeance, it is not in reality. For Jesus Christ himself declared clearly in Luke uh, 21. Let's read Luke 21 from verse 20 to verse 24. It says, "And when ye shall see Jerusalem compassed with armies, then know that the desolation thereof is nigh. Then let them which are in Judea flee to the mountains, and let them which are in the midst of it depart out. And let not them that are in the countries enter thereinto. For this be the days of vengeance, that all things which are written may be fulfilled." And we know that that event was fulfilled on 66 AD. And when Sistius surrounded the city of Jerusalem, and it was resumed by Titus on 70 AD. And at that time, God's people are celebrating the Passover week. Which is the day of vengeance. So all those things are only the groundworks. The particular object in view must be in the judgment that pertains to the living. And according to 1 SR 154, it says, "The day of vengeance" in Isaiah 61 verse 2 follows the year. So in the perfect fulfillment of the prophecy, the day of vengeance must follow the year of my redeem. Now, if the year of my redeem commenced in 27 AD, supposed to be the day of vengeance must be in 28 AD. And that is why that could not be the perfect fulfillment of the prophecy. Because the perfect fulfillment of the prophecy, the year of my redeem, that is the acceptable year of the Lord, by which the 144,000 are to be sealed. And immediately after that year, the acceptable year of the Lord, the year of my redeem, is finished, then follows the day of vengeance. So, we will continue tomorrow to establish firmly, concretely, with absolute facts, when would that be the perfect fulfillment of the acceptable year of the Lord, by which after that acceptable year of the Lord immediately follow the day of vengeance. So we'll continue this subject tomorrow. And may the good Lord bless you, brothers and sisters. Thank you very much for listening and viewing this program. Have a beautiful, wonderful